This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Bring you the Nerdy Manroom show with your host, Hassel and Monster. Monster, this week we got a special show where we have Review Rewind. It's new to the show.
Yeah, it's our new segment. We talked about it last time. Well, last time you and I were together, we talked about it. I know you had a live show in between those. I was out of pocket for a little bit with work and family obligations and stuff, and now we're back together. But before we get too far into that, let's do our usual and thank our sponsors first, The Zone Collectibles. You can find them at their store located at 305 Main Street in Tifton, Georgia. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles. Visit them for all your nerdy needs, from comics to Legos, trading cards, toys, games, and more. Make sure you help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And before we jump too far into our normal stuff, Hassel, I know you guys had the live event there a couple weeks ago now. We're recording on the 23rd. That was on the 13th, I think. So about 10 days ago at this point. I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to share from how that was and how that went.
Yeah, we had a great turnout. I literally rolled my ankle walking into the theater. I was 10 foot away from the door. Daniel's standing outside and he's on his phone. I nod and my goofy ass steps into a hole. Rolls my bad ankle, so it was a bit of a nightmare from the pain point. But, we had a really great turnout. Zone Collectibles, we can't thank them enough. Mr. Dan Garcia for coming up. And I see you eyeballing my sweet-ass shirt that Dan got. So shout out to Dan. Thank you for the shirt, brother. But he came and he had a great turnout and gave away some free comics. He signed some things. He had some pin-ups. And it was just a great event. Fox Crafts, who designed our logo, and many other people's. She's actually going to be doing some letter work for him for his comics. So it's, he's doing the same thing as Kev, and the Zone. He's trying to give back to, local creators and whatnot and give them an opportunity to do something big. So, here she's got a big opportunity.
Yeah, and since you brought that up, nothing that we can share just yet because we haven't fully locked in schedules and all, but we do have a couple of other, creators that we've been talking to, content creators and collectors that talk to about coming on the show and interviewing with us and stuff and spending some time hanging out with us. So hopefully more to come on that in the near future, just something to throw out there since we're talking about it, because we made a lot of good friendships through this so far and tried to help the community as much as we can, with like-minded people. And looks like we may have some more of that coming along the pipeline, just not exactly sure when yet. So I don't want to throw any names or put too much out there just because we haven't been able to lock everything down just yet, because it's that time of year.
I'll throw one out at the end of my Geek Week, though.
All right. But we've been trying to push that agenda a good bit and make sure everybody is sharing and helping with the community out there. So more to come on that as we get closer to it. But with that, Hassel, if you're ready, why don't we jump right on into Geek Week? And it's been almost 2.5 to 3 weeks for me since we recorded, just because I was out of pocket. So I don't remember who went first last time. So flip of a coin.
I feel like, seeing as we had to do the heavy lifting of the live show, we start you off, brother.
All right.
The fans haven't heard Monster in a while. They're ready to hear some Monster.
Oh, nobody wants to hear from me anyway.
Sure they do.
Not a whole lot to share. I mean, like I said, for me, it's been almost 15 days, I think, since we recorded last together, but maybe even more. I haven't really sat down and counted them, but it's been mostly work. I haven't had a whole lot of time to do much. Did have a couple of days off, but it was more to get the kids settled in for school, because this is his first year of high school and we had to go to orientation and all this other stuff. I did take one.
Monster.
Yeah, I did take one day and go to PowerCon in Columbus, Ohio. Really great show. Got to meet a couple of really good content creators I love to watch on YouTube. Toy Galaxy, Dan Larson, and Robo and V's from the Foosh. Had a lot of great conversation with them just about toy collecting and stuff. Saw a lot of neat He-Man stuff. The NECA was there. Four Horsemen Studios was there with their newest Mythic Legion stuff. Got to check a lot of that out. I honestly didn't buy a whole lot at this convention, so I was proud of myself for not spending too much because I was worried I was going to, but got to see a lot and got to meet a few other folks on YouTube that I get to watch regularly, and that was really neat. Beyond that, I've bought a few toys. I did go on a little bit of a spree after that, trying to find, especially the McFarlane toy stuff that's been coming out. And I know I've doted on them in the past for not being the greatest. Their aesthetic is getting much better. Their articulation, not so much so, but they had some that they put out I just could not resist getting. The Multiverse Asriel Batman. I ended up getting a couple of him, one to open and one to keep in package. He looks fantastic. There's only a couple of things that I would have done differently with him, maybe like some of the darker paints, and then they didn't paint the talons on his fingers. They could have been painted silver.
That was really the only thing, and the one you sent me, I mean, was the blue on it is just a little too blue.
Yeah, it's still too light. It needs to be more navy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like I guess Batman of the '80s. He had a certain blue that to him that when they were trying to brighten him up a little. He has that same blue to where, Bruce, when he had his back broke, it was a little darker, and Asriel was, more of a darker, navy or, however. But
yeah, and the biggest one that stood out to me besides the blue was just the fingertips. If they'd have painted those silver, that would have been much nicer. I also picked up their Hal Jordan Parallax. That one was a struggle to find. I finally found one, and actually I found two of them in the same store because I needed one to open and one to package. And I found both of them 30 minutes away from home, and I ran and grabbed them. And
I'm still a little envious of this.
He looks really great, but I think I told you this offline, but the design, the coloring and everything on it looks good. It's just the way that they design some of it and put where they put some of the stuff for the suit there is not in the right place. Like the thigh high for the boot should be on the side of the leg, and instead it's on the front, and then there's no green strip down the arm.
Circle. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he looks great, and he actually is one of the better ones I've had to pose, and I've got him posing. I like how he comes with a lantern. I've got like the lantern falling over in front of him like he's crushing it, and I mean, he looks really neat, but it was, again, there was some stuff they could have done differently. I did buy another Martian Manhunter too, the classic style one to open just because I ran across it, and I had a $10 gift card for Target for buying groceries there, and I was like, oh, that means it'll only be $9.99. So I talked myself into it.
I'm still waiting on to stumble across some of these Spirits of Storm Shadows that are like showing up all over Facebook for like $12, and it's like,
well, I sent you pictures of them when I found them the other day. I was in Pennsylvania this past week for work, and I sent you. I was like, hey, I've never seen them in the store before, and you're like, yeah, they're like for $12. Store I was at, they were still $21.98. I was like, nah, for that, I've already got both of you. And I've got two of Spirit because I got one open. I just was going to grab a Storm Shadow for $12, and I was like, nope, you're full price. You're going back. So I let it go just because I didn't want to pay that
Shadows, but I only have one Spirit. I do want to pick another Spirit up, and I'm like, but I kind of want to get him on that low.
Yeah.
Just to feel like I won one, just to feel like I got one from the man.
That's why I didn't buy Storm Shadow. I want him on the cheap. I will say that I have been looking for some other stuff in Walmart though that's exclusive, and this the superpowers McFarlane's doing. I was not going to get those, and then when I saw them in person, I was like, okay, the Superman's a little off, but it's not terrible. He's got crazy, weird-looking eyes, but beyond that, he looks okay. The color looks better in person than it did on all the pictures I saw, and I wanted the Green Lantern John Stewart because I was going to open him and put him in my superpowers collection, which is really good. Somewhere back there. But I want the Flash too, and I cannot find the Flash one anywhere. But I think he just came out, whereas these others have been out for a couple of weeks.
I literally seen preview art of him the same day as the Batman Who Laughs. So I wasn't big on the Batman Who Laughs, but
no, me.
That Flash, it brought back a lot of memories. It looks spot on with the old Kenner Flash. I was like, holy shit, this is cool.
Yeah, I will get that one when I find it. I just haven't found it yet.
Batman's the one that's let me down the most out of the whole line. I mean, Darkseid is what he is, but Batman, for some reason, he just does not look good to me.
I've seen that one in person, and I just could not make myself buy it. I mean, even for $9, I'm like, nah, it's just not worth it.
I did almost buy that Batwing though. I seen it one day, and I picked it up and I tried to justify buying it and not buying it. Then I almost justified it by buying it for the Gremlin. And I was like,
yeah, I've looked at it. Now, the one I looked at and then I laughed and walked away was that Superman mobile where it's got the little punching arms on it. I was like, this is made for a kid. That one didn't stand out to me, but the Batwing did look good. Other than that, that's all I've really picked up. But I've got like 15 items in my pile of loot that I need to place for Big Bad. I'm just scared to do it at this point because of the shipping and the taxes. But also for work, I have to go out of town again next week. So I'm like, I'll order it on the way back. That way it'll be coming in and I won't be out of town and this huge box arrive and I have to send somebody to pick it up from my place because it's going to be pretty big.
I kind of split mine up because I was at 14 myself. So I kind of shipped 7. And I'm waiting on that, and I'm like, I'm just gonna hold off on this other stuff right now.
I looked at doing it before I came home, and I'm glad I didn't because I looked at it on Thursday, and then Thursday night I had 2 more drop in, and then I had another one drop in today, and I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't ship that. But coming back, since I know I'm going to be home for the week of Labor Day, I'm like, I'm going to ship it and get it here that week so I can unload it. But yeah, I've got several things in there. I mean, there's some good stuff in there, but the ones I'm really excited for is my Iron Spider-Man from Marvel Legends in there, and my retro card, Fire Lord, is in there.
Well, I'm getting a little frustrated between all of my pre-orders, honestly, because literally I got an email today, the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat finally shows with the TV title. That's like been in stores. I haven't seen it in the store, obviously, because I live in a shit area, but I've seen pictures online where people are finding them stores with the chase and everything. And then like the Python Patrol, Viper, and Bat, I keep seeing them all where people find them every day in Targets. Along with the Man W Macho Man, that's the exclusive that was just announced about a month ago. People are like finding triples of those in stores. And here I am still getting charged. So,
I had to call one of my credit cards this week because they had a system maintenance error and everything went down for a couple of weeks back in the end of June, 1st of July. And I mean, they didn't charge anybody late fees. I mean, they were good about it. They're like, hey, you can't pay it because we can't get the system to work. Everybody will come up. You won't have a payment for July. You can pay in August. Now, I didn't have any payments on mine, but that's where I had some of my pre-orders from Target. So the system finally comes back up, and all the Target holds, instead of dropping off and being replaced, they were just adding a different hold every week. So I had like $300 in holds for the same 3 orders. So I canceled all of them except for one that I could not reorder, and I moved them all over to a different card. Well, those other 2 are still sitting on there, like in like $150 or $160 worth of orders are still sitting on there on hold. So I finally called them. I'm like, look, this has been weeks now, and you guys haven't removed the hold. And I was like, I asked Target, and they're like, no, you have to contact the credit card company. And their response was, oh, those are set to fall off to September. I was like, dude, they're dated for like June 30th. What do you mean September?
Wow.
They're like, oh, well, we can try to do. I was like, I said, if I have to call back in September and they're still there, I want something out of this. I want some like rewards points or something because this is terrible. But I'll leave it for now.
Is Target doing weekly holds now? Because I thought I had noticed that, honestly, because I know originally it was once a month. Now it seems like every week.
I don't know. I moved all my stuff off of theirs, off to a different card, and that card, the hold went in one time, and then it was gone, and I haven't seen it come back on there yet. But well, and let me put it this way: it's not just a card; it's my PayPal credit because I have a PayPal credit card, which is just a virtual card that's PayPal credit, and anything over a certain amount of purchases interest free for 6 months and all this stuff. But so those charges, when they hit, they were on there once, and then once they cleared off the hold, they're gone. So they're good because with PayPal, they're going to charge you whether they charge your credit or if you don't have enough credit, it's going to go straight to your bank account if you have it linked, and I do. So So I haven't had that on there, so I don't know. I'm not sure if they're doing weekly or not. I saw it on that other card, and I was like, no, this ain't gonna work because, by the time this stuff ships in October, I'm gonna be out of credit on that card if you keep putting holds on it every day.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
But yeah, other than that, for my Geek Week stuff, honestly, reading. Honestly, I went to a book sale the same day I was hunting figures, and it was just a half-price bookstore, which is a big chain around here, and they have a lot of so every now and then they have a warehouse sale clean out. And I went in there and they had a bunch of trade paperbacks and graphic novels for $2 each. And now some of these are not in the best condition. You can tell they were like library copies or whatever, but $2, I'll buy them if they have ones I want to read. And they had X-Men 2099 Volume 1, which was the first like 7 or 9 issues of X-Men 2099. So I bought it, and that's really all I've been reading because I took it on my trip with me, and anytime I could sit down long enough to read, that's what I was looking at. I'm not even halfway through it, but it was like, it's nice to pick this up and read it because it's better than anything else new right now, honestly. Beyond that, watching stuff, watching TV, watching movies, TV. I did catch the She-Hulk premiere, which I thought was a really good show. I've seen people that the first couple of days that had great reviews from everybody, and then they started getting review bombed, I guess, and I've seen mixed reaction to it. But I personally thought it was hilarious, and I loved the breaking the fourth wall because she was the main character for Marvel to do that before Deadpool. That stood out to me, and the story-wise looked pretty good so far. I enjoyed it myself. I know Big Rob reached out, was like, if it doesn't get much better, I'm not enjoying this one. But I thought it was one of the better
I
ones.
didn't get that. He was the person I expected to like it the most, and I thought I would probably be the one to shit on it, honestly. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. I watched it, I was like, holy shit, this is pretty good. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think they'll match it each week just because you're not gonna have
No,
Bruce on there every week. So
no.
how do you keep the pace up without, can does she carry it on her own? I mean, there's a lot of questions moving forward, but for a pilot, very enjoyable. I did like where, Bruce is like looking at her when she breaks the fourth wall, like, what? It's like, so
Yeah,
it's always one of the things in the comics where when it happens, no one notices. But
yeah,
like he actually notices, like, oh, that's a cool nod. That was pretty
yeah.
neat.
That was good, and I like the fact that it said what I read was that every episode was going to have a cameo or an after credit scene. So all right, I'm down with that because that was pretty funny at the after credit scene in that one as
It
well.
was America's Dick.
I would tell you this though, if you enjoyed it, you still really need to go back and watch Miss Marvel because it has that same vein, just a little more adult themed with like the lawyer stuff and all.
Okay.
Uh, Other than that, I binged Sandman on Netflix, which was a really well done show, and I thought I was going to be a little turned off to that one with Jenna Coleman being a gender flip John Constantine. Not that I have a problem with that, just more so that character's been so popular in the last few years. Why do that? But man, she played the part perfectly well for the little bit she was on there. She was only on like 1 or 2 episodes, but the entire thing was a really well done story. They just put out a bonus episode this past weekend, like an animated half of it was animated storyline and half was another storyline that they just was from the comics. They just didn't have room for it in the season, but it was actually a really good show. And then the other one I watched was A League of Their Own, which is a reboot of the old movie.
Tom Hanks classic.
Yeah, it's
Jimmy Dugan.
different characters. It's a different team from the female league, but it's actually a really
Okay.
good story. It was actually really entertaining to watch. It's
Well,
one of
I had
those.
seen where they were coming out with that, and I was kind of curious, but not curious enough to watch. I was like, I didn't want to taint the movie because, like, as a youngster, that was one of the few VHSs we had at my uncle's when we went to visit him,
Yeah.
and it was in the country, so you watched a lot of shit on repeat, but it was enjoyable to watch on repeat.
Well, and it wasn't. I guess for me because it wasn't the same characters and the same storyline. It was actually really good, and they harped on a lot of stuff where you would have assumed. Well, maybe not nowadays. When we were kids, and if you'd have seen a female baseball league like that, you would have assumed that most of them were different sexual orientation or things like that. And they touched on a lot of that in this, saying, yeah, that a lot of these players probably were. Now, this is not necessarily true stories, but they touched on that in there, and how that was in that time period was basically illegal. But they had a lot of that. After the first episode, I was pretty hooked on it. I will say that it was one of those where it's not the first thing I'm going to go turn TV on. But once I started watching, I was like, all right, well now I want to finish it because I want to see where the story goes. I think other than that, I watched just a couple of movies. Day Shift on Netflix with Jamie Foxx and James Franco, where they're vampire hunters. Not a great movie, but a great time killer. It was just entertaining to watch. It had some funny stuff and then some stuff that was like, this is lame for a vampire hunter movie, but it worked. Snoop Dogg actually made his scenes in the movie actually made a lot of the movie. Which, have you seen any of the previews for it?
I actually hadn't seen nothing on it. You guys started talking about it this weekend, and I was like, I don't even know what this is.
So I will give you the premise of Snoop Dogg, and that should explain why his part in the movie is funny. Yeah, Snoop Dogg himself is actually a pretty tall fella. He's a little over 6 foot, right? But 6 foot tall, South Central LA, African American gentleman who is also walks around with a cowboy hat and a Gatling gun.
Okay.
Now tell me you don't want to watch where that goes.
It sounds like Snoop Dogg just become Dog the Bounty Hunter, and I'm down for that.
He was hilarious in the
But it's
movie.
Dog with a D-O-double-G.
Yeah, it was hilarious, man. His parts in the movie made me laugh. The rest of it was just kind of okay, but it was a good, sit there and kill an hour and a half, 2 hours. The other movie I watched, and it's not, I guess it's not really even a movie. It was a documentary that's on HBO Max. It's Milestone Generations.
I've seen a lot of good things about that.
Yeah, so you've seen it. So talking about the Milestone comics, I actually really enjoyed that because it got into it and explained, how did this idea of Milestone come about and how did they get their deal with DC, and the fact that when they partnered with DC, like the publishing team, Paul Levis, who been at DC for years, was one of those like, yeah, I'm all for this. And they were gonna, the imprint was its own imprint, but they were gonna do the publishing and distribution of it was the contract. The publishing team was all behind them, but the marketing team was not. The marketing team was like, I don't understand this. Why are we doing it? This is gonna fail. So they weren't pushing it, but the publishers were fighting with marketing because they're like, no, we need to push this. And the creators that were doing Milestone were like, we were just in the middle and it was our stuff. And we were like, man, how do we make this work? And they finally did. And then the only falling out the last falling out they had after it started going well, and Dwayne McDuffie, who was in charge of all the Milestone stuff as the editor in chief of it, but he became a big DC writer later on for everything.
Yes.
What broke his back and what made him want to leave, the whole thing was they did an issue of Static, and I don't remember the issue, but it's where he loses his virginity and stuff. And there's something like there's condoms in the room, and there's a conversation that him and his girlfriend have about having, sexual relations. And DC was like, nope, not DC, not like Paul Levis and the publishing group, but like the higher executives from Warner Brothers, I guess, were like, no, this violates our code. So you're going to put this, we're still going to publish it, put it out there, but you're going to put this page in here where this doesn't represent DC's values. And at that point, everybody from Milestone was like, they didn't even tell us they were putting it in there. They just did that, and we were disheartened by it. So everybody wanted to leave at that point.
Wow.
So, I mean, there was a lot of conversation too about how they came back, and the Static continued to go on with its own cartoon, and then how they all came back, and except for Dwayne because he passed away. But
some of the better episodes of Justice League Unlimited he actually wrote. They were very good.
Yeah, and
do you think that just while you're talking about the Milestone, do you think the bigger higher ups would have been paying attention to a regular book? Because I mean, let's be honest. Do you feel like the higher ups are really looking at what DC was doing in Superman, Batman?
I wonder
why were they watching this so much?
I don't know. I wonder about that myself. They don't really touch on that much in there. They touch on the fact that not everybody, even in Milestone, was African American. There was some Latino writers. There was one of the editors was a white gentleman, and they talked about how they made it just a fun place to work and how they were all treated as equal in there. But when it went outside of there, they couldn't really promise that. But they did talk about the reboot they're going through now in Milestone, which I always liked Static and I liked Icon a lot. And I bought the new books that they put out, and I had a lot of the old ones. The problem with them right now for me is that they can't put out on time. They started the reboot, and some of the books were 3-4 months late. I mean, it took them almost a year to do a 6-issue miniseries of Icon. Same thing with Static.
You kind of lose your audience at that point, I think. If you're a big publishing company, it's one thing like if you start out and you say, hey, we're going to be bi-monthly, something to this effect, or quarterly, you have your fan base that they look towards that. But if you are supposed to be a monthly title and you can't produce and you're 6 to 8 weeks before your book's out, that makes me stop as a reader.
Yeah, and I can say this, I can see too where the pandemic affected some of that because they started back up during that time frame. But even when they were coming out of that and everything else was getting on a regular schedule, those were still behind. And that's been their, if that wasn't an issue with them, those I think would be selling much more right now than they probably are, because I don't even see them breaking the top 100 list right now. But there was a time when Icon, Static, Hardware, and Blood Syndicate were always in the top 50, if not the top 25, and now they just can't do it anymore.
See, that's what's one of the things. Like, I mean, you and I have discussed this, off of, just on our own time, because, we both deal with distribution and things like this, and just the workforce in general has just truly changed so much since the pandemic. But you wouldn't think that like comic creators' ethic would change that much, because they primarily work from home a lot anyways.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is almost like a lot of them have even got to like they're just, we'll get to you and get it to you.
Yeah, I told you, and we may have even talked about it on here when I ordered my pre-orders for what month was it? I can't remember what month it was now. It might have been May or June, but when I ordered pre-orders, every Marvel book except for the Fortnite Marvel book and a couple others that like Avengers and stuff that they were always on time with. There was only like 4 Marvel books that were not canceled and resolicited in the next previews of orders because they were not going to make the monthly time. I counted them. It was like 15 books.
Wow.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But with that, that was all of my Geek Week update. So I'll turn it over to you to see what you've had going on, sir.
Well, we have some of the same things. I'll start mine out kind of with a little CM Punk debate we got going on in AEW right now. Did you see the bullshit with him and
I
Hangman
have.
Page?
I've seen it.
And the one person that's championing CM Punk, which almost makes me want to believe that CM Punk is more of a douchebag than I thought he would be, is Jim Cornette. And he's the one person wouldn't have thought he would because I know Jim hates AEW. However, I would have thought that he would have liked Hangman because Hangman is somewhat more of a traditional babyface and traditional wrestler for the most part. So I kind of thought he would have championed him, but no, he's shit all over Hangman, just like Punk did. But then, like people from WWE have actually, because somehow it has resurfaced. That was the first one I seen was a picture of it had an outtake of Triple H and him having an interview back when he was still there, and he was accusing CM Punk, Triple H of burying talents and doing all this stuff, and he pretty much told him, said, no, he said, it doesn't matter where you're at, you're going to always be unhappy. You're going to always, if it's not about CM Punk, blame everyone else. And it was like, holy shit, this was in 2014. And every bit of it was ringing true. And then Booker T was like, I shared a locker room with him. He said, it doesn't surprise me one bit. So, I mean, these are people that have worked with him. It's like, ooh. And it's.
I have to agree with him. I told you when he first came back, I told you that, as far as being in the ring and being a character, yeah, I thought he was really good. But at the same time, he came across to me like how worse than Bret did, I guess, because I don't want to say he came across like Bret Hart. He came across worse than Bret did about believing his own hype and thinking he was great and thinking that he's what made everything work. Now, I say that sometimes about Bret Hart, but I'm mostly half joking. I mean, he believes some of the stuff, but not to the extent of Punk. Punk believes he was. I mean, that's why he went to the UFC and tried to fight, and we see how well that went. He's not the be all end all he thinks he is, and honestly, he went out with a broken foot, which he broke on his own stupid accord.
Yeah, jumping into the damn crowd. I mean, and the more you hear about it going into that pay-per-view, like he went into Tony Khan and basically told him he refused a job to Hangman. I mean, because that killed Hangman right there. He actually needed that win. Punk didn't need it. But, the company may have needed it on Punk just to justify the money they spent. But, at the same time,
see that. But
they would have got more money out of Punk letting him lose to Hangman and then maybe picking up the victory later.
I fully believe in, and I don't always agree with this dude either, but when Eric Bischoff said that CM Punk was the biggest waste of a return on investment in wrestling, he's not wrong. Especially when the dude went out hurt as soon as he won the belt when you were banking on him being there.
And even that, John Moxley's had to bail him out for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And he's bad to bury him.
Yeah.
Booker T said he made another comment today, and it said that Punk's got this uncanny ability to make the fans just clamor for him. But is he really worth the drama and bullshit that you had to deal with to get that reaction out of the fans? But Booker T is one of the ones that you almost feel like he's shooting it real with you. He don't. I mean, what's he got to gain? He's not towing the company line. He's not, just pulling the old WWE because he, does the pay-per-view show or whatever. So that's pretty interesting to me. I mean, that's the only thing they had interesting on the AEW this week. SmackDown was kind of I call She-Hulk. We discussed that. After She-Hulk, I did watch the finale of Obi-Wan again because it was badass to me, and I really wanted to watch that fight again.
We'll bring that up in a little bit too.
So I had to go back and rewatch that. Then Sunday I watched The House of the Dragon. It finally dropped. I know you're not a Game of Throneser, but this is your chance. It's 172 years before Game of Thrones.
I have saved it. I haven't watched it yet. I did hear that apparently HBO Max crashed the other night when it first came out.
Three times.
Because there were so many people trying to watch that, but then, and I'm so surprised because honestly, not that they're trying to watch that or that HBO Max was showing something that people want to see, but everything that HBO Max is going through right now and everything that Warner Brothers is doing, all this stuff that they're canceling and getting rid of left and right. And, I wondered how it was actually going to affect HBO Max, but apparently when it's something, that enough people want to see, it really doesn't matter.
Hey, for people that haven't watched Game of Thrones, it's easy to shit on and say, "Oh, it's it's this, that, or the other." And I was guilty of that myself a couple of years ago. And then I finally jumped on board just for the final 2 seasons, and I was hooked. And it starts a little slow, I will say that, but it's establishing, and I'm fine with that because like you get a little ahead at the beginning. And it stresses, hey, this is 172 years before the Darius Targaryen. So you establish it's a whole totally different everything. They have a few nice little nods, some things. They mention the Starks. I mean, these bloodlines do exist. The Lannisters are mentioned. But it's not the ones you know. So it's fresh. You don't have to know anything. And it's been a really good story, and the dragon effects were good. So I'm waiting to see where it goes. It's to me, Matt Smith, he come off like a fucking just douchebag in this, like the villain. And then I watched the behind the scenes afterwards, and they're like, "Well, he's not the monster you think he is. He loves his family." I'm like, "No, you did not establish this very well. I'm just going to say this: he is established as a douchebag that wants his brother's seat."
Dude, he was the main villain in Morbius, and I don't know if you've ever actually watched that or not.
Not yet, I haven't.
He was, for that dude to see him at conventions and interviews and stuff. He is like the nicest human being out there, but he plays the best villains.
Well, I will say I did not expect to see him doing a nude scene, so there's that. So for all you Whovians that's what you've been looking for. There you go, girls. But it was interesting. I almost watched the milestone shortly after that because I was like, it was 10 o'clock, and I was like, do I got time?
It's only, I think it's only a little over an hour, like an hour and 10 minutes or something long. I mean, it's a good watch. You just you have to be willing to sit there and watch it or just listen to parts of it. It's one of those that you don't have to see everything they're putting on the screen just as long as you can hear it. But if you miss something, you'll come back 5 minutes later like, what are they talking about now?
So that's one of those things I can put on while I'm cooking. Because like my TV's here and my kitchen is there, but everything's kind of open, so I can multitask. And but if I miss a second or two, it's no, or at least visually, it's not.
I turned it on, and then my laundry room was not far away, and I had to go change laundry and stuff, but I could still hear it. So if I didn't see it, I could at least hear it, and I was keeping up with what was going on.
Also, Sunday, moving on, I've done a rough sketch of a new character for Daniel Garcia. It's going to be set in the Dane universe, and it's going to be a pretty cool character. Man, he and I have kind of, it's his character actually. He spit some things out to me, and I was like, holy shit, that's cool. I said, what have you done this, and what have you done that? And then we kind of bouncing a few ideas. He sent me some sketches he had, and the more we talked about it, I was like, man, I just got to put him on paper the way I see him. And I did, and I was like, hey, look, dude, don't take this wrong way. It's just, he loved it. So he's speaking with an artist. We're going to see if we're getting some concept of this, and you're going to kind of mesh some of what he had with what I give him. So we'll see where it goes. But hopefully you guys get to see the character pretty soon because his universe is blossoming out pretty well. Like he said, we covered in the live last week. It's fixing to be multi-titled. He has 3 titles, and then we'll cram some of my shit in there, so it'll flesh out pretty good. And Sadly, yesterday I skipped Raw and watched the Falcons lose. I should have watched Raw because I kept checking on Instagram and I was seeing all the cool shit. And Raw actually looked really good.
I turned it on right before we started this because for everyone, this is actually a later night recording for us. Usually we do this earlier in the afternoon, but this is a late night edition, so don't hold anything we say against us because it might get the later it gets, the more stuff just flows out of my mouth that it probably shouldn't.
And I drank nothing.
But I started it right before we got to here, and I watched maybe half of what I've got because I get the hour and a half version, so I was probably halfway through.
I got Hulu Live, so I get the whole thing, and I typically watch. And I had quit for a while, and I've started back since Triple H came back. And I wanted to, but like the Falcons was playing, I said, "Man, we're playing the Jets. We'll fuck them up." And for the first half, we did. So I was like, "Yeah." Then the second half, it's like, did my team need to take the field again? Because not only did we not maul them up anymore, they come back and won. And last but not least, certainly not least, Monster, did you see the Terrifier 2 trailer that dropped today?
I saw you posted something about it. I have not had a chance to look at any of it yet. I did finish working and I went straight to try and catch up on wrestling. I was hoping I'd finish it before we got on here, to be honest.
It looks like a really great combination of Terrifier and All Hallows Eve, because there were some certain elements of All Hallows Eve that had a little more supernatural, but you kind of escape to the real world here and there. Because like these kids, they get the VHS and they're putting the VHS in, and that's how they're introduced to art and all this craziness, and All Hallows Eve. So you kind of get a vibe for that. The world is aware of art because he's family did survive at the end of the first one and escaped. They never found his body. So that looks really cool. It drops on October 6th. So we should be having our friend, Mr. David Howard Thornton, shortly thereafter.
Excellent. Because I know he wanted to talk about last time he was on with us, and it's been a little bit, but he was wanting to talk about more of what went on in the movie, but he couldn't yet because it wasn't out. So and
I also told him I kind of wanted to wait till I could actually watch it so that we could get a spoilered version, because I want to talk gore with him. And there's going to be some amazing kills in this from just what it shows in the trailer alone. So I'm pretty pumped.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw him doing a live interview on Instagram with someone. Shoot, I can't remember who now. Sometime middle of last week, I think.
A blonde chick. She does a show pretty regular, and I'm ashamed of myself because I should know this, because she's got a pretty popular horror podcast.
Yeah, I've seen her before. I don't watch that one regularly, but I know you've sent me clips of stuff from her before. I just don't know her name off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Sadly, I do know it, and I can't. It's yeah. So I apologize to you. We do watch the show and support you guys, but my mind is mush tonight, baby. So.
Yeah, it's the late night edition, so there's some stuff that probably won't go the way we expect anyway. At any rate,
we're live, folks.
Yeah, we are getting old too, so it's getting past our bedtime. I ran out of kids to yell at on the lawn a little while ago.
Yeah.
But with that,
said, we rewind review.
Yeah, so let's we talked about this last time, but let's reintroduce it for everybody because this is new for us. It's called Rewind Review. This is a new segment. What we do is we're going to go back and rewatch some movies from the past. Not necessarily past, but just random movies we pick, whatever it happens to be. This is a segment that'll come about maybe we talked about maybe doing this every 6 to 8 weeks, just picking something and reviewing something old. And when we review it, it's going to be a little bit more, not of the plot review necessarily, but more of here's a critical eye of how we review it. And there'll be some differences to how we know it. So normally when we rate a movie on here, we're usually talking on a scale of 1 to 10, how do we like it? And it's just about the enjoyment factor. This one we're looking at, let's rate it more of a A through an F scale, kind of like a grade school scale, and say, hey, anywhere between that A and that F, how did it fall, and why did we pick those ratings for? It's much more critical than what we normally give. So that being said, the first one we wanted to do, we talked about doing Mr. John Wick, and we were going to look at the first one of this, and then we're looking at just the first movie, not the entire series. We may touch on that some, but the majority of this is about the first movie. But before we get into that, what I wanted to do is just for everybody's sake, including our own, let's do a level set. Let's pick something fairly modern that we watched in the recent past. And we started putting this together a couple weeks ago. So when we talked something that we had both finished fairly close was Obi-Wan. So we'll say, how do we grade Obi-Wan individually, and why did we give it that grade? And kind of a quick, that way everybody kind of has a quick level set of how do I grade, how do you grade, and what's the differences and similarities between us. So if you want to, I'll go first since you had me go first earlier. But
hey, clamoring for you, monster.
So if we pick Obi-Wan and we say, okay, how would we grade Obi-Wan on a scale of A through F, just like how we're going to do John Wick here? I gave Obi-Wan an A-.
That's fair.
I thought it was a great overall story, and this is the reasons I chose that grade. Great overall story. The two, and I would have given it an A because there's still some room for improvement on everything, but there were two things that drug me down to a minus and almost to a B plus, to be honest. But just for my nostalgia's sake, it kept them A minus. But the two things that drug it down for me was there's inconsistent plot devices in it, like where they walk up to the laser gate and he has to take time to shoot the gate so they can walk through. And this thing is only like the width of the vehicle. You could have just walked around it and walked right past it. And another one of those plot devices. There's two more that really got me. The second one that really got me is when he's walking with Leia and he's got her wrapped up in the coat, and it's like the Chipmunks or the Muppets where they all hide in the trench coat to be a human and they're standing on each other's shoulders. I was like, what is this? And then the third one was when Darth Vader, and I loved a lot of portrayal of Vader in this until he arrived on the planet to fight Obi-Wan in the finale. And you brought this up about their fight. So two things that bothered me in this fight. One, is very dark. You couldn't hardly see half of what's going on. I had to watch it twice just to figure out what happened in it. And this is supposed to be your most impactful fight scene of the entire show, but like you couldn't see half of it. And the other thing is when Obi-Wan arrives on the planet, and when he first sees Obi-Wan, he looks at him and says, "So have you come to kill me?" And I'm like, dude, you followed him.
Yeah.
He was just sitting there chilling. You came after him. What you mean, did you come to kill me?
Branched off from the rebels and allowed them with Princess Leia to escape.
Yeah.
To follow this guy as the Grand Inquisitor's going, he's not our mission. You know?
Yeah. But then he looks at Obi-Wan and says, "Have you come to kill me?" I'm like, motherfucker, he was just chilling.
That's just the narcissist in him. That's the narcissist in him. He couldn't admit, hey, I'm here to fuck you up, boy.
But stuff like that, it's like this was such a pivotal series, I think, to tell a little bit of a story that we didn't see in the past. And there was just those little things in it. It's like, why did we have to do that? Or why didn't we just walk around this laser gate? Come on, you're a Jedi. You're supposed to be, wise and sage and powerful person, yet you got to take time to shoot this laser that's no wider than the vehicle you're in.
He let his wisdom rest for the last few years as he was dormant.
I guess so, but that's kind of
why. Along with his Jedi skills, his wisdom was dormant.
Yeah, but that's why I had to give it an A-. I was like, I couldn't go any higher just because of stuff like that. I was like, really? But and that's kind of how I grade stuff when I'm looking at it that critically. Now, if I'd have just been watching this to enjoy it, and you just said graded on that same scale, it'd probably been an A+ just because it's Obi-Wan.
Myself, I'm in 100% agreement. It's A-, and for the same reasons you're saying there. It just, to me, a lot of and also to me, it was such a slow burn. Say the first episode.
Yeah,
and I get you got to establish the monotony of what he's doing now. He's been dormant. He's like suppressed his Jedi powers. He's trying to hide. And I was like, okay. But that first episode is like, just stroll. Slowly builds up in the second one. But then after that one, it's like a roller coaster. It's like you kept creeping. And once you get there, we free fall for the next, 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was amazing. The biggest flaw for me personally was the Grand Inquisitor, third sister, take the same exact saber stab that Qui-Gon took.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
And they shook this shit off like, got the old monkeypox, but I'm going to be fine. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is the whole reason we got Darth Vader, because you'd have never had Darth Vader had Qui-Gon lived and not took that same saber shot.
And they really
to me, it lessened him a lot because a lot of the things Star Wars does, and like, well, look at Darth Maul in that same battle. He's chopped in half. He survives through his sheer will and hatred and so forth and so on.
And it could have been some of his genetic structure too, right? He is an alien. We don't know if that, does he have, did he really need his lower half of his body other than it would be nice to have it?
Okay, did the Grand Inquisitor just shift some organs around?
Well, see, they never.
He
That's
have
one.
genetic?
I don't know. That's one of the things though. That at least they show the third sister hurting and suffering from it. He just supposedly dies and then he's back perfectly fine. There's no explanation at all. Like, how did you get back?
That was my biggest flaw to me. But there was so much cool shit that just like that the fight itself. Those final two episodes, you get the Vader moment, the Force Unleashed moment with Vader doing
Oh,
the
yeah.
starship.
That's
cool as fuck.
great.
That was great. And then the battles with him and Obi-Wan, it's like you get the one where Obi-Wan is still somewhat gaining his power back. And he gets his ass kicked. But he escapes. Like narrowly escapes. It's like, and you realize this is why Vader was the most feared son of a bitch in the galaxy. Then in the next episode, Obi-Wan is back attuned to the Force, and he puts a spanking on his little Padawan, and showed, and that's what makes, to me, that's kind of what gives A New Hope so much more gravity. The fact that that, okay, that's only supposed to be what, 9 years later?
Yeah.
Roughly somewhere in there. So
9-10 years, something like that. Yeah.
9 years later, Obi-Wan would not have deteriorated that much, regardless of the fact that Sir Alec, looks far older. But he would not have. I mean, hey, look at what Christopher Lee looked like in Attack of the Clones and was kicking ass with Yoda. So he could have possibly still held his own with Vader at that point, but he chose to, go the route of Qui-Gon. And man, had they maybe put it that way, like maybe that's what Qui-Gon was doing. I don't know. Maybe you could have tied it up a little better, but to me, those things offset enough for me to just really enjoy it. And when Qui-Gon shows up at the end, I popped. I popped again the second time.
That one got me. So, before we jump into John Wick, just because we are talking about John Wick and we're talking about pets, I got to ask this question too, because I didn't think about it till you mentioned that first episode. Who took care of Obi-Wan's little horse camel thing while he was gone? Did he just leave enough food out for it? Because he was taking food to it every night. So what did he do? Steal a whole meat thing and leave it out for him, portioned out?
He had enough blue milk out there for him to survive the tumultuous journey until he come back.
I just thought about it because I was like, wait a minute, he's got that thing back in the last episode. Who took care of it for the other 5 episodes?
Aunt Peru was a kind old gal. She would go out there and give it a little blue milk and whatever the hell that was he was feeding it. Little cuts of meat he was stealing.
Yeah, and I actually liked the little cut of meat thing because it was a little like, okay, they're showing that how's he surviving this thing, how's he keeping this pet thing alive. It showed a human element to it, right?
Well, it just showed, because I mean, if you watch the prequels, the Jedi never knew for want. I mean, they almost lived lavish lives when they were on Coruscant and in the temple and so forth and so on. So unless they're out in the galaxy, and even then they're treated like royalty, honestly. I mean, when they showed up, everyone, took care of them like they were true knights of the Republic.
Other than the Outer Rims and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first time Obi-Wan had probably known want in his entire life, which is, to me, is a great storytelling technique.
Yeah. Yeah, but before we spend too much time on Obi-Wan, we were just using that as a level set. So let's jump straight into. We'll jump straight into John Wick, and I'll let you go first this time since I just went. Where do you feel like it falls for you on a grading scale?
Someone that has Baba Yaga tattooed on his fucking elbow, who's going to set the bar right there. John Wick 1, to me, someone who's watched it about probably 297 times. It's a A plus with 2 golden stars. I love it. Like, it is a movie. It's almost Tombstone-esque. I can watch it anytime. If it's 3/4 of the way in it, I'll still watch that final. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd rather watch the entirety of it just because the build-up is what makes it.
Yeah.
And you have that progression where, you when you first see him, it's like, you don't think shit of this guy. Just like they didn't either. So, and you have this, and you start to feel for him because you go through the death of his wife with him. So, and then you see the little puppy that's just adorable. Because when a man's dog shows up, you got to sympathize. So I just to me it's as close to perfect for an action movie as you get. There's enough story there to hold me. And I am one of those people that you could have nonstop violence and I'm fine. The violence tells a story, and it does in this. And there's so many great just lines in it, just like John Leguizamo when the car shows up, and he knows instantly, like, where the fuck did you get this car?
Yeah.
No, where did you get this car? And he knows who he's dealing with. He knows he's dealing with a bad motherfucker's son. And he slaps him without even thinking. And that's what sets the best part of it to me is like when the dad calls, he's like, so you struck my son here. He said, sir, you know whose car he stole? It's just a car. He said, it's John Wick's car. And you hear, oh.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, that's one of those parts when he goes, oh. And he don't say another word to John Leguizamo. He's just like, oh. Well,
that's the cool parts of that movie for me. Like that, when the cop shows up, he's like, oh,
dude, I love that part with the cop.
You working again? It's like it. And it's like, he's like, thanks, Jimmy.
That's one of the things I did like in some of those real world elements, and I will give my grade of it right now too, and we can talk through some more. But I teeter between a B plus and an A- for this, and for different reasons. But some of the stuff like you're talking about, like when the cop walks up there and he knocks on the door, and he walks Keanu Reeves walks towards the door with the gun like he's fixing to take out whoever this is, because you see the flashing lights, you hear the siren, and he opens the door. He's like, "Oh, hi, Jimmy." He's like, "Hey, John." He sees all the different. You working again? Just working through some stuff. Okay.
It's like,
see you later.
We're not fucking with you.
He's like, and John Wick asked, said, "Did you get a noise complaint?" He's like, yeah. Working? I'll just leave now. That, and when the cleaners show up, and it's like that whole cleaning crew, that was fantastic. They just include that little bit like that.
I would love to see a short film, and it could be fan made, with just Harvey Keitel as the cleaner for Pulp Fiction, and that cleaning crew getting coffee together after the jobs. Like they're both just finishing up, and they just go to the diner. That would be so cool.
Yeah, but one of the things that really stands out to me in the first one, more so in the first one, I think, than the later ones anyway, if I'm comparing it later. But in the first one, the legend of the character adds so much more to the mystique of the character. Like what you were talking about, and he's like, he stole John Wick's car. It's like, oh. It's like he killed him with a fucking pencil.
He's like, who does that? 3 men with a pencil.
Yeah.
But when he calls him and tries to rationalize with him, he's like, hello, John. And he's just like trying to condolences and all that stuff. And he's like, he just hangs up. Then he's like, oh, shit. And he's sitting there singing the old Russian song. Like, Yeah.
And the way he talked to him on the phone has so much realism. It's like when you call somebody that you don't necessarily like, but you know something bad, and you're like, I don't hate you, but we're not friends, but I'm going to offer my condolences. Like, hey, how's it going? Hope things are okay. Do you need anything? But you really don't mean it. You just are trying to be nice. To me, it was
like he was trying to gauge just how fucking furious
exactly.
This man was. Like, okay, can I possibly make you an offer you can't resist? Or am I finna have to go to war? It's like he was feeling that out, and he wound up getting this guy. When you get this guy, he's the guy you can't send to kill the fucking boogeyman.
So, and that's one of the biggest things. So, one of the biggest things I liked about the first John Wick as opposed to the other, because I will tell you that when we talk, if we talk sequels at a different point in time on a different one of these reviews, I'm not into them as much. I think they lose a lot of stuff from the first one, and I know you like all-out action, but like this one had one line in the movie that just it explained the entire movie to me, and that's when after they captured John Wick after the bar fight, and the guys got him chained to the chair and all, they're going to choke him out with a bag and stuff, and Keanu Reeves looks at us. He got the sign. I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's like he's talking about how the dog was given to him the guy said, what's the matter about this dog? And he's like, well, the dog was given to me. That was my one thing that was going to be productive, healing way of me dealing with this grief. And you took that from me. So everybody's been asking me since that happened, am I back? Well, right here, right now, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I'm back. And that's what, to me, that was the whole plot of the movie. It's like, okay.
Well, that's what makes the first one so much better than the rest of them. Because the first one is 100%. He's as pissed off as he is about this dog. That was the last thing of humanity that was anchoring him to his wife.
Yeah.
Once that dog was gone, he had a lot of unbridled rage with losing his wife. And that's the brunt of it. I think that's probably one of the more powerful scenes in the whole movie is when he's sitting there almost near death today and he's just rewatching that video of him and his wife.
Yeah.
And that's when you really grasp it. I mean, if you've ever been in love, it kind of just sticks to you. It's like, oh, shit, I can only imagine if that was my loved one. What would I do? And that's what sets that one from the rest of them because the second two is more he's just dealing with the repercussions of what he's done. Stepping his toes back in the water, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then the water just gets deeper and deeper. And I'm mad enough as much as I enjoy 2 and 3, I got no problems 100% saying 2 is probably about a B+ for me. And 3 it's a very big B-. But I can enjoy them. I won't rewatch them as much. I've seen both of those a ton of times too, and I really enjoy part 2. But 3's a little.
Yeah, three for me is the only one that I'd say if I had to drop a letter grade, it would go to a C because there were parts of it that just could not hold my interest. Now the second one,
that's fair. It
probably
really
a much lower,
I
B, but still in that same B range of somewhere. But I'll tell you the other thing I liked about the other pro I have for the first one, is everything that they did had repercussions throughout the movie. Just like Adrian Palicki, and I may be butchering her name, but her character, how she tried to attack John in the hotel. A lot of other action movies, this stuff would happen, and you never see what happened to that character that betrayed him, or they'd just be dead off panel somewhere. They show the repercussions of her actions because the entire community of the hotel basically guns her down in the middle of a thing, and the cleaners are there, and they walk right in and start cleaning up.
And that's what sucks too. Like the guy he had to kind of watch her. He had such a short time on film on camera, but I just really liked him. Like he just had a presence about it. It was like, and John trusted him, so it's like this got to be a likable fucker right here. And then she just whacks him. It's like, oh, you bitch. I mean, she played a great heel in the movie.
Yeah, she did. I actually really liked her character, but I just thought I really liked the fact that they kept repercussions for her for breaking the rules. And like, okay, we told you not to do this, you did it.
And that sets the stage for part 2.
Yeah, yeah. So for me though, there are a few cons, and one of them being I didn't like how Willem Dafoe went out so easily. Like he was such a. I mean, he was a long range badass, but he was such a badass in the movie. And then when they killed him, it's like, really? That's all he's gonna. He fought back a little bit, but that's all he's gonna get before he's dead.
He had his own theme music the whole movie.
Yeah.
Every time he shows up, you get that Marilyn Manson song, and then you finally get the full version of it when they kill him. But he went out like a champ, though. It's like, hey, dude,
he did.
He went out holding.
I just wasn't expecting him to go, so I guess it shocked me more than anything.
Yeah.
Really, the biggest con for me that kept it from becoming an A- or even an A movie was that when I go into any movie, I'm sitting there, what's my suspension of disbelief, right? So if I'm going to watch a superhero movie, I know that none of this is going to be realistic, so I can suspend all disbelief to a certain level. If I'm going for a comedy, I expect there to be awkward situations and stuff, but nothing just like, okay, unless it's a sci-fi comedy, it's like, aliens aren't going to land here and start making fun of the humans and stuff. So I know what I'm expecting. Action movies, you really expect a lot of times. You got to go in there and figure out once you start watching, what's the level? Is this like Last Action Hero action where none of it's believable? Or is this Equalizer, John Wick style action, for lack of a better term, of, okay, there's going to be a certain level of killing. But this one there was some times where it was inconsistent, like when he falls off that second story in the bar fight, and he gets up and he stumbles a little bit and he's hurting, but it's like it really did. Dude, if you fall off that second story of that place and land on the table the way he did, your ass is going to be out.
Monster, I don't know if you know or not, But this wonderful suit he is wearing repels bullets. It helps you fall down many stories and get up and stroke this shit off. Not counting the painkillers he had in his system at the time. So, you know,
The ones that got me worse than
and
that
the
one.
shoes alone. Man, check these shoes out, dog. I'm just saying.
The ones that got me worse than that, because there was so much realism in what he did, like just the way he carried the gun. I mean, even when he would hold
Yeah.
the gun and he'd hold it, there was so much realism. But then you would get hit by a car doing like 60 miles an hour, spinning around, hitting you, and you would bounce like a damn ping pong ball. Yet you're standing on your feet 2 minutes later. I'm
Well, have
like,
you seen the
dude,
videos of it, like where he's actually like really good with firearms?
yeah,
There's videos of him training, and this cat is like almost John Wick in training. And it's like, this isn't the choreograph shit. This is him just going through a training course. And he's just like, pow, pow, pow. And do a tuck and roll. And it's like, holy shit, Keanu Reeves, the most zen son of a bitch on the planet, is actually a badass. Don't fuck with him.
yeah.
Give him his loaf of bread to give to someone else.
And that's, I mean, I love how he portrayed that realism and that. It was just the stuff that then took you out of that realism. Like, where am I supposed to sit at in this movie? How far am I last action hero level, or am I, tombstone level? That this bullet's going to kill me, that it hit me. Where am I at in the middle? And it wavers between both of them. It's like, all right, pick a lane, pick a lane and get in, and I can make this to an A- easily. I got lost because there's some action that just loses me, but I like the action. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy watching that, but it's like, okay, what level are we gonna stick at? And I think that got in the other two, that gets even worse for me because there's some fight scenes in the other two. It's like, really, that action went way far afield of what he did in the first one. But that's the reason
I kind of think they did a better job of establishing characters and the first one as far as like your supporting cast or whatever. They done a much better job of like okay, well like William Dafoe. His character could have had a spinoff movie or a
absolutely.
prequel. You would watch it. The attendant and Winston, both at the Continental, very very entertaining characters. Entertaining enough to where you loved them both through the next two movies up until the heel turn. Well, one of them, anyways. And so I mean, they just done a really good job of establishing all these characters, and even the Russian crime lord Vigo, him and his little henchman, like them two in itself, like it was entertaining. You know, I mean, the son, he was Theon Greyjoy was a dick, but he was a dick in Game of Thrones too until he ate his dick. But hey, it is what it is. But so if you do watch Game of Thrones, you will hate that son of a bitch, and then you will sympathize for that son of a bitch.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's like, ooh.
He is one of those ones though that stood out to me as like, he's the type of heel that you need to be a heel in a movie. He is a perfect, basically he's a perfect douchebag that everybody should hate.
He did, and he done. I mean, I don't know. It's just they established the supporting cast a little better in the first one than they did in the other two.
Yeah, and that was one of my big pros of that one was Willem Dafoe's character because I honestly thought the entire movie, okay, he's gonna be. After they meet at the funeral, you can tell they're somewhat friends, but not great friends. And he's like, but then as they talk to him later on to go kill John Wick, he's like, okay, and you don't know until he actually ends up saving him several times. Is he really on his side or is he not? And then you realize, he really is.
You did get the vibe that he was actually going to take the money from Vigo at one point. It was like, oh, you douchebag. I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, come on, man. Don't be that guy. And then he redeems himself, and I was like, yes. And then he gets killed, and it's like, oh, man. Fuck.
Yeah, I really enjoyed stuff like that in the movie because that's what made this one to me so much better than the other two. Is it was just there was a lot more story and humanity to it, and I like action and I like nonstop action, but I will get a Japanese, movie where I can't understand anything they're saying anywhere, and the words don't match the movements of their mouths, and watch that. If I just want to see action, I can fast forward through and just watch the fight scenes. So while I like watching the fight scenes in movies like this, I want to see the story develop too.
Well, that's the case. You need to watch Train to Buzzman. Then that's anyone that likes zombie stuff, I highly recommend it because it's one of the few movies with subtitles I will watch.
I don't
because
guess I've
the
seen that.
action.
I know what
It's
it is. I've never watched
it's
it.
actually on. It was either on I watched it on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I forget which, but it's free on one of the two, and it's very good. Like I said, it's got subtitles, but there's some Japanese stars that you'll recognize on there, and the action sequences are good enough, and even the story is good enough to make you want to read. Which is crazy. You watch movies just keep reading, but hey,
Yeah.
hold
Oh, well, I mean, that's why I say it's so hard for me on picking this one over the score, because I'm like, I'm gonna go to B plus, but part of me wants to say I'm A minus just because the parts of it that developed really well, and then the action that went along with those, like the house scene where they invade the house and the way he kills everybody, and then all the little human interaction at the end of it's like, hey John, you working again? Oh, we're here to clean up for you, John. All right, guys, it's all back there. That stuff was like, that just made me want to watch the movie so much more.
There's nothing about the movie I don't love. I'm gonna go full Ultimate Warrior here, and we're strapping the rocket ship with the rocket fuel to the letter A, and we're going to the moon, brother. It's all the way.
He'll walk in the cockpit and rip the door off. Where are the pilots?
There you go.
You see that they have left.
He killed him with a fucking pencil.
Apparently so. Oh man. I don't know that I had any more real big pros and cons, and I will admit, because we were going to do this like a week ago before I had to leave town on a.
And then, we are.
And I watched it then. So
our listeners, you're watching this. If there's something you want us to add or to the review rewind, let us know. Hit us up on our social medias and say, hey, we think you could delve into A, B, or C here, or say, you fuckers nailed it. Thank you. Your choice.
Yeah, and anybody's welcome to share your thoughts and feelings as well as to what you thought about the movie, because we would love to hear your, except for Big Rob, because Big Rob is just gonna hate on me the entire time. So he's banned for comments for this one. Just kidding, Rob.
If you don't like John Wick, I don't mind shitting on you either. So
no, I don't think you find too many that don't like it. I mean, everybody I talk to really enjoys it.
I think anyone willing to listen to us for 2 hours would like John Wick. I'm just saying.
Probably so. But with that, unless you had any more pros and cons you wanted to cover, we can move straight into our nerd out section, which for anybody who hasn't been here before.
Yeah, dog. We're ready.
Is that the actual dog that comes with John Wick figure?
That is the actual dog.
Is that must be the second dog you got, right?
This
first one was a
John
lighter
Wick
color.
2. This is the John Wick 2 Mayfix. They've done an amazing job. I don't know how well you can see it on camera here, but it's just a beautiful figure.
I got the Diamond Select one for my son for Christmas last
year. I have that one, the one with the box about this big.
Yeah, and it doesn't come with a dog, but it has like multiple weapons, I think.
I have it. I left him in the box, but the Mayfix stuff, I feel like they're too beautiful to leave in a box. They're made to be took out, and they'll hold their value if I decide to resell one day. Typically, I have it in a glass shelf in my living room because I'm that guy. But I felt like, hey, John needed to come out of the glass today. John
say nothing.
Come out of the glass. So
I don't have a John Wick figure. Like I said, I bought that one for the kid for Christmas last year, and actually I found it on sale in it was a Diamond Select I found on sale in Walgreens for like $11.
I come this close to buying the all black suit John Wick Mayfix, and I was like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is just the same figure. They've just colored the shirt.
Yeah.
And I still almost justified that $100. So thank the Lord I didn't, because my fiance would kill me. But yeah.
See, and that's another thing. I know I didn't get to come down for the live show. You keep trying to get me to come back down and visit, which I need to come home and visit anyway. But see, at this point, I'm scared to come to your house because I haven't even met your fiance other than virtually. But as much stuff as I tell you, hey, this is here, hey, this is on sale, and you probably blame me for a lot of these. And I'm like, man, she's gonna kill me if I ever see her in person.
No, at this point, she would just be happy to finally meet you to be able to conversate. She's like, I feel like I'm co-married to you some days, and I'm like,
well, with that, we will move right on into Nerd Out. For anybody who hasn't been here before, this is where we ask questions about the topic of the day, whatever that might be, whether that's a focus topic or, in this case, this week is our new Rewind review. We'll ask a question of each other. We haven't had time to share our questions, prepare our answers, so you get the off-the-cuff answer of whatever we come up with here and the reason why. If you have answers of your own for our question, please feel free to share that in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Or if you want to expand on ours, feel free to do that as well. So Hassel, since I went first on the Geek Week, I'll go first on this too. My question, I kept it centered on the John Wick stuff for this week, but what other fictional character, non-powered, non-superhuman, and when I say that, I mean even like a Batman type, nothing like a superhero type thing. What other fictional character would you like to see John Wick have to go against that you think would actually give him a run for his money?
Son of a bitch, you just stole my question.
Literally,
I was there for the last 10 minutes just like, ooh, that's my shit. But I'm going to answer it anyways.
So let's do this. I'll give you that question, and I'll come up with another one because I had a second one too. So we'll claim this as your question.
To answer my question you just asked, Dutch from Predator.
Oh, I thought about that one.
Dude, can you just imagine? This man kills a predator with mud and sticks. John Wick kills 3 motherfuckers with a pencil and library books. So, I mean, whew, like if you put these two in some, oh man, the only way, and I'm gonna go John Wick as a victor still, unless Jesse the Body Ventura shows up because he didn't have fucking time to bleed and shoots them both with a Gatling gun. Outside interference.
But do you think that at some point Dutch tells him, "Get to the car"?
Oh man, I will take money for that. Get to the chopper. We got to go. Oh man, like I'm not gonna sleep tonight. I'm gonna wake up at 3 o'clock thinking about this shit. Literally, I know I will. And then we all stoked and excited. Can't get back to sleep. Thanks. Be terrible on meetings tomorrow.
Well, you know. For me, I said I went with another John. I thought there was another John that would give Wick a run for his money. I'd like to see John Wick versus John Rambo.
Ooh.
Because Wick would kill you.
Okay.
Wick kills you with weapons, but Rambo makes all kind of traps.
Which part of Rambo?
Dude, I have to go with physical fitness and ability. I got to go with the First Blood Rambo, but I got to go with the planning from Last Blood Rambo because that dude just made all kind of fucking traps out of nothing.
That was actually what I was going to say. Even though he's aged, he's so
vicious.
driven by the fact. Like I say, if the whole premise of the movie is John Wick thinks he killed his fucking dog, but he thinks he kidnapped his niece. You know what I'm saying? Oh fuck, dude! I'm still thinking about that. That's great.
If we go with earlier movie Rambos, I think Wick wins out in the end, just because Rambo did have charged more headlong into it sometimes. But if you go into the last few movies of Rambo, I gotta go with Rambo because he started building even more traps and going from there just because he was so driven, he just wasn't gonna quit.
Okay, if Rambo has a shit ton of prep time, I'll give Rambo. But if it's on the cuff, there's no prep time, Wick. And don't get me wrong, Rambo can take some punishment. When you can be, chained up to the damn box springs, getting electrocuted, you're a pretty bad son of a bitch. But, no prep time Rambo versus John Wick on the fly, which all of John Wick shit was on the fly. So I want him to give him the edge on that.
And that's fair. I think I think that's a fair assessment of it. That was well. Since I gave you, because that was your question too, I'll give you the other question I had.
Now you gotta come up with another one, Monster.
No, I had another one in mind. Which movie universe would you like to see John Wick actually in, besides his own?
You know what would be kind of fun? Have him in a Terminator movie. And not some of the ridiculous Terminators where they're like liquid metal and all that shit. I'm talking about just a T-800, Terminator 1 style. Yeah, say Kyle Reese gets whacked, but John Wick just happened to be there. And he wants to take this lady because she favors his wife. Poor Sarah Connor reminds him of his dead wife. That could be interesting.
My first thought was what your thought was on putting him against Dutch. I would actually like to see him in a Predator film.
Well, that was natural, and I almost said that, but it was one of those deals like, you know what? I done chose Dutch, so I'm not going to just stick with the just right now, Predator's like fresh in my mind anyway. So I just watched Prey not long ago, and then I wound up
Speaking of,
watching.
let's take a quick aside because I don't think we spoke about that on here because I think that happened between the last time you and I were together. So I watched Prey, and I know you did too. I thought it was really well done. I really liked it a lot. I've always had one problem with Predator in general, anyway, and I'll get to that. But did you notice in Prey at the end of it, the gun that the girl takes from the Spanish conquistadors or whatever they were? That's the gun that they give Danny Glover at the end of the second Predator movie.
You know what? I did not pick up on that actually.
I didn't either until I read it somewhere, and then I went back and watched it. I was like, dang, sure is. It's the same gun that they give Danny Glover. It's just an earlier version of it, right? Because they take trophies, and in Predator 2, they give him a trophy back for taking out the wayward Predator.
What was that? One of the ones from the ones he had already killed, or is it actually that one? Do they kill him back? Because there is actually already a rumored sequel, which I think would actually do more damage than good, honestly.
I'm assuming it's that same one because there's some kind of inscription on it that's the same inscription. So unless there was another one that had the same inscription, then it's either that one or one that was with that same group of conquistadors, I guess.
That could be cool. I mean, it's just, do they show up and honor her? Because the Predator do seem to be big on honor. If you do best them,
it might be. I'm not sure. I really enjoyed that movie, but I thought that was neat when I found it out, and I went back and watched just that scene. I was like, that is the same gun. It's that same flintlock type pistol, and it's got the
inscription. Makes me want to rewatch it. I mean, that's one of the few. My fiance, she don't do a lot of violence, but she watched that with me. She actually enjoyed it, and then I wound up going on a binger that night.
They have so many of those on Hulu.
Well, that was the problem.
Well, we've been doing that too, just picking up and like, let's watch a few minutes of it. We don't finish any of them.
We watched it fairly early on a Sunday evening, and she goes to bed early. She's a 9:30, 10 o'clocker. I'm a late. I stay at 11:30. Typically most nights, even though I need to be up the next morning. So while I was sitting, I was like, man, I got just enough time to watch Predator. So I watched Predator, and the next thing you know, I'm like halfway in a Predator 2. It's 12:30. I'm like, I got to go to bed. Yeah. So I didn't finish Predator 2, but yeah. And you know what? I will say this. No one gives Predator 2 the love it deserves. It's actually a much better movie than I remembered.
I thought the first Predator was just a good action movie.
It was almost as perfect as you could get for 80s horror, 80s horror / action.
Yeah, but there's not a huge amount of story to it, really. It's like they didn't explain where did this thing come from, why is it here. It was just there. Predator 2 gave you a lot more backstory and a lot more origin story for them, and not even full origin, but it's like there's more of a history for them.
Yeah, and one of the cooler things about it, and it's something I didn't realize until recently, the dog tags of the unit they're after, that's Hopper, same name of the guy, the sheriff from Stranger Things.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was a cool little nod that Stranger Things did to Predator, and I didn't even realize it. I was like, holy shit, because that showed, it was like, wait a minute, it's like first name, last name, him. It's like, holy shit, that's cool. And that's the same timeline. He's ex-military, so they're actually there's small rumors that maybe it's the same when he went back into the military.
I will say though, my one big complaint always with the Predators is these are supposed to be the ultimate hunting and killing machines, or people, or species, whatever. Yeah. And they're always trying to prove that they're better. And my thought is always, if you want to prove that you're the better hunter killer, why is your ass always invisible and I can't see you, but you can see me? How is this fair?
Yeah.
That has always bothered me, but I'm like, I get it.
The Predator is always outmanned, though. I mean, let's be like this. I mean, if you go up into the wrong neighborhood at night and you're battling your way out alone, you would like to be invisible too.
True, but he's going there when they start their stories every time, or at least other than the first one, maybe when they first get there, their ultimate goal is to find their ultimate prey, hunt their one ultimate prey. But I'm like,
best them in combat, yeah.
But you're invisible, dude. Come on.
With superior tech at that, which was one of the cool things about a prey. You even though it had superior tech and they had space technology and so forth, it still was it wasn't on par with what was in the later movies. It predated it.
Yeah, because
by
that was my concern going into it. Because I told the kid when we were watching, I was like, if they show up and they got the whole, they had the laser sighting system. If they got the whole lasers and stuff they're shooting and the electrified nets and all this stuff, what chance do these people with rocks, stones, and spears have?
None. But they did have instead of shooting the big blast through there, they shot like 3 arrows at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was metal or whatever, but it was still pretty cool. We had the big spear and had the bone mask, which I will say that the face did look, the structure wise, looked a little different. So maybe they evolved a little more over the next 100 years. But I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie, even though it was cool to me how the Predator viewed her as weak, so it kind of overlooked her a few times. Like it had opportunity to kill her, but because it didn't classify her as a threat, and let's face it, I mean, who did classify a woman as a threat over 120 years ago?
Well, you saw it. You saw it even with her own tribe, where she wanted to go hunt, and they're like, "Nah, go back to the camp, do this, do that." So I think it was cool that they portrayed us. We always talk a lot of time we hear about the woke culture and how they push stuff. This one was just showing this was a strong, independent woman without it being pushed as a certain woke culture. It's like she was just going to prove that she was as good as everybody else, and it wasn't that she's a woman, so she's got to prove she's better. No, it's like she just wanted to do this, so that was her storyline.
Well, I mean, it was cool to me too. I don't really feel like it was woke culture so much. It
No.
just finally gives the indigenous people a little bit of a nod because I mean, you know my family, my mother and grandfather. They're very strong Indian ties, and my household growing up, we had Indian shit everywhere. You won't find that at my house, unfortunately, but in my childhood homes, we had Indian stuff everywhere due to our family lineage. So it was cool to kind of see that. And I just literally wrote an Indian character a few weeks back in a book I'd done. So it was like, to me, it was really, really cool. And I was like, oh shit, put some shit in perspective. And it was like cool. And you kind of get a vibe of how some things would have been.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about this. And it showed that culture, and it showed that this woman, even in that culture where they're not put down maybe as much as we do in more modern times, like, the 70s, 80s and stuff, 60s, whatever. But it showed that.
They kicked her in the head to wake her up. I was like, oh, how fucking brutal is that? And that's her brother who loves her, like kicks the shit out of her every day, like, get up, mutt.
But the way they portrayed those cultures and stuff, it's like they're not trying to push. They're not trying to do it as woke culture. So this is just what the stuff was, and this is how they lived. And it was like, okay, that's what I like to see out of it. I don't need to be beat over my head about it. I just need to be able to see, okay, this is what it was like, and learn more about it. And I can't say I can understand it fully because we didn't live that culture, but it's nice to see that and it not being we're going to do this just.
It wasn't shoved down your throat. It was done intelligently and it was respectful. And small cool fact to me, the dog was actually a rescue from Fulton County.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I read an article about that probably a week after I watched it. It was a stray dog that was from Fulton County. It was in the Humane Society. They got it for the movie. It had no training. But the dog wound up testing well when they just started testing it. The part started small and grew into something bigger.
That's pretty neat. I didn't know that. But with that, we've covered Nerd Out and took a little aside here to talk about some extra movie stuff, which is always fun. But with that, we are running close on time. So this will bring us to a close for today. But before we leave, let's make sure we give some shout outs. First off to our friend Daniel Garcia. Kickstarts for Xyber Ronin is over. But the fun is just beginning. As we've been hearing more and more, we're continuing to build the universe. We got some new great projects in development, from what I understand, and we're going to hear even more about these in the days coming. But I don't know that we can share too much right now, or unless you have something you can share that I don't know about.
No, actually, I hate to interrupt the love for Daniel. I was actually checking my phone for the winner this week, but I just got. You're going to be fucking stoked, monster. I just got my shipping confirmation on my next generation WWF ring. From Mattel.
Oh, that's a nice one.
I was a backer. Actually, my fiance, God bless her, she bought this for me. That was a gift from her last year, but we did the early backing, so we got all 3 figures. And I literally, as I was just opening, I got the packages shipped.
Excellent.
So now we may go back to giving Daniel some love. I'm sorry, Dan. I love you.
So yeah, remember that they're fleshing out the universe even more. We've heard Hassel talk about it. We heard Dan talk about it on the live stream a couple weeks ago. But make sure to continue to check here for updates, as well as on Daniel's pages on Facebook at Daniel Garcia and on Instagram at The Garcia Comics to find out more. Remember to check out our sponsor, These Own Collectibles, for all your nerdy needs. You can find them on the internet at theseowncollectibles@gmail.com, on Facebook at These Own Collectibles, and in their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Help support their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And with that, I know, Hassel, you said you were checking the phone for winners this week. So what did we have for a giveaway and winner this week?
The winner this week, she's been blowing our page up and liking a bunch of stuff and giving us some support. And she's a fellow creator herself. So I'll butcher your name. I apologize in advance. But Cushy Mama, Miss Mandy Lynn, you are this week's winner. And in theme for what we got going this week, we have Game of Thrones proof. It wasn't House of Dragons, but it is Game of Thrones, and you got Ned himself right here, the baddest OG. Wow, that's low down.
You got to hold it back up there because the light on the reflection there. I couldn't see a thing in that. Oh, there we go. Now we can see it because I couldn't see it at all.
I got you, buddy. Well, my lighting system sucks. That's something that fans, I apologize and hope to have changed.
Usually it's better, but you called it just right this time.
And seeing as we didn't have a actual dragon proof for the House of Dragon, I went with the next coolest thing to me, the king of the monsters himself. Got some pretty badass shit. And we got a sticker and a card. Holler at us, we'll get you the info and I will ship it out to you ASAP.
Awesome. And with that, everybody remember to keep in mind that we're also on a drive to hit are we still
250?
250? Okay. So 250 subscribers by mid-October, we'll say at this point. If we do that, we'll have a big giveaway for some great Halloween themes items there. But with that, all you have to do to enter these contests is hit us anywhere on any of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Any of that puts you in for a chance to win the weekly giveaways. And Hassel, with that, can you tell everybody where they can find us at?
I will tell you where you can find us, and I'll actually tell you the prize. I think I'm at liberty to be able to spill it at this point. We hit 250 by mid-October. I have an actual Michael Myers mask, and not this bullshit you find at Spirit's Halloween. A great replica mask signed by the H2 actor himself. So, you don't find things like this just anywhere. Get us to 250, share us, like, subscribe on any of our stuff, and you're entered. But you can find us on Twitter at NerdyMR Show. You can find us on Facebook at Hassel Hutchison via Nerdy Manroom Show. And you can find us on Instagram at the Nerdy Manroom Show.
Excellent. And with that, I think that brings us to a close for today. Join us here next time as we discuss your favorite topics. So what we're going to ask for the next show is that anywhere on any of our social media, share what you would like to hear us talk about on the next episode. We have until, what did we say earlier? Next Thursday? Is that right? Yep. I got the day right? I can't remember what day we said now. I told you, late show, it messes with my mind.
Sometime over the course of the
we will post it on social media when to have it in by, and we will pick a random topic out of whatever topics you guys send to us, and we will discuss it. But until then, live nerdy and be kind to your animals.